Thanks for joining. Okay. Oh, I'm so happy Adi's here. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Start in just a few seconds. And if you see me like up and down like this, it's because I'm also looking at my computer screen. So apologies in advance. But I'm trying to hack technology, trying to hack life. Okay, welcome everyone to my deep dive into what I call embodied mysticism. My name is Yocheved Sidof, and I'm joining you live from Brooklyn. Big thank you to Erez for inviting me to this special gathering of high frequency souls who are coming together to talk Torah, art, creativity, spirituality. And when I thought about what I wanted to share tonight, I thought about just stimulating one of the classes or the kinds of classes that I've had the honor of teaching now for about a year on what I call embodied mysticism. So teachings, ideas, precepts in Kabbalah, in Jewish mysticism, and learning them in a way that really allows us to not only digest them spiritually or intellectually and emotionally, but also like in our soma, in our bodies. And that by doing so, we not only learn the Torah, but we're able to really digest it and extract the light and the lessons from it in a way that impacts us very, very deeply. I've had the zechut, the merit of being a student of Chassidus since I'm super young, and it's spoken to my soul, my being. And I've always just felt really, really moved by the teachings of what is it to live in this world in a way that is infused with deep meaning and a deep sense of purpose. But it was in a sense separate from how I won't say it was an intellectual pursuit, because it was far more than an intellectual pursuit, but I didn't think about how Hasidus and mysticism could really be a portal into deep healing. And, if I look at the trajectory of my life, I had a background in the therapeutic world, in photography and filmmaking for 10 years, in progressive education, and in some way it looks like I've kind of jumped around in a lot of different modalities and careers. Like there was a time I was photographing weddings, and there was a time where I was running a school, and there was a time where I was running groups. Or what is the thread that brings all of that together? And for me, really, the thread is, how do we build communities with healing at the center? How do we build communities that really authentically are committed to the evolution of self in a way that we really express ourselves as whole people? And my own healing journey, I feel like those words are becoming kind of kitsch, but really a journey of deep getting to know myself and really digging deep into pain points and desires and longings and stories and narratives, and just really digging deep. I would say really took off a few years ago when I went through a pretty profound turning point in my life. And part of that healing journey was, like classic therapy. I've been blessed to be with the same therapist for 3 years now. And part of that healing journey was also working with a somatic therapist. And for those of you who may not know, somatic therapy is really not just talking about a particular issue or pain point or story or moment in our lives, but actually, where do I feel this in my body? So I can say I feel sad, but can I actually feel where that sadness lives inside? Right? And can I track the flow, the movement, the traction of that particular feeling in my body, in my nervous system? Can I become aware of defense mechanisms or my protector or other parts of me and how they get triggered, and really over time learning the landscape of my nervous system. And our nervous system is ancient, and we are born with systems that are intelligent and highly sensitive, that carry ancestral data and collective data. And so the activity of really learning our nervous system, the activity of really getting to understand who we are and what our triggers are and where our feelings live inside of our bodies is so healing. And somatic therapy for me has been an incredible portal. So what is the paradigm of this kind of healing in Torah? So I want to kind of take us through a journey, and we're going to follow a particular thread of Torah. We're going to learn some Baal Shem Tov. We're going to learn some Lubavitcher Rebbe. Hopefully, if there's time, we'll do a meditation. And I'd like to follow a particular thread where we can follow an idea on the conceptual, intellectual, mystical realm, but also really bring it through to like our minds, our hearts, and like where it will live in our body. And ultimately, this idea as a paradigm, not just for understanding the world in a different way, but as a portal to healing. So I hope that sounds interesting. And I hope it sounds like something that could be eye-opening and ultimately soul-opening. And I call that embodied mysticism. Can we learn a piece of Torah and learn it not just as something that happened way long ago or something that has even deep spiritual significance, but can we learn a piece of Torah, of mysticism, of Agada, of halacha, and actually see it as something highly personal and highly relevant, that speaks to our humanity. So we're going to start with a piece of the Baal Shem Tov, and usually I'm talking to people, and I'm talking to two screens. So if you're listening and you want to just do what you do on Instagram or Facebook to kind of like show me that you're here, just so I have a sense of people out there, that'd be amazing. And yeah, let's go. So we're going to do a piece of the Baal Shem Tov. As a Lubavitcher, this is something that is, this piece is quoted so many times. It's a very famous line in the Baal Shem Tov. I would urge you to read, I would urge you to read this in its entirety, because the letter of the Baal Shem Tov is fascinating. And like I said, it's an amazing model for embodied mysticism, of not just a beautiful letter of the Baal Shem Tov, but a real portal to understanding ourselves. So we're going to learn a particular part of it, and I'm going to focus in together on a few things. I will read the Hebrew and translate the English. If you have access to the computer, you can go on Safar, and the name of the article is Baal Shem Tov, When is Mashiach Coming? A Masai Kasimar. It's like a classic line where the Baal Shem Tov meets Mashiach. And this is a letter actually that the Baal Shem Tov wrote to his brother-in-law. Like I said, it really is a love letter. It's quite beautiful to read the introduction, because you'll find that the Baal Shem Tov had a correspondence with his brother-in-law, Rav Gershon, and actually many of their letters did not even arrive to their intended destination. And the Baal Shem Tov references Torahs that he shared with his brother-in-law that he has since forgotten, and he's not even sure if they arrived. And there's a lot of love in these letters, and it's kind of an insight into a world that no longer is, where there was a real investment of self and a real patience around correspondence. And so this letter is a letter that the Baal Shem Tov wrote to his brother-in-law, Rav Gershon. And this letter actually did not arrive to Rav Gershon, but it was printed in later years. And it starts off with the Baal Shem Tov describing a very, very deep meditation that he has one year Rosh Hashanah. I dabble in meditation. I was lucky to learn with Rabbi Katz in Jerusalem for 2 years. And, we can kind of like reach interesting heights and consciousness and et cetera, et cetera. If you just imagine the Baal Shem Tov meditating on Rosh Hashanah, I think it's a safe assumption that he like reached levels of consciousness that surely I could only, I don't even know if I could even envision. And so he's painting this scene, like here I am meditating on Rosh Hashanah, and I enter, the Baal Shem Tov is explaining this to his brother-in-law, I enter this sublime part of Gan Eden, and he paints this beautiful picture of this joyful space where people, where people's sins are being forgiven. So the paradigm of Rosh Hashanah being this like intensely heavy, auspicious time is eradicated by Baal Shem Tov. He describes this place of complete joy, and it really paints a beautiful picture. We're going to hit like a specific point, and again, I really urge you to read this letter on your own. We're going to go to the point where the Baal Shem Tov actually meets Mashiach. Here we go. ועליתי מדרגה אחר מדרגה עד שנכנסתי להיכל משיח, ששם לימד משיח תורה עם כל התנא והצדיקים וגם עם שבע רעים. So he's elevating, he's going up level after level after level until he comes to the palace of Mashiach. And there Mashiach is learning with the Tanaim and the Tzadikim and with the 7 shepherds. Right? So he got really high up, like the Baal Shem Tov got high. V'sham raisi simcha g'dayla ad ma'ayid ve'eni yadei l'simcha zu ma hu oseh. And there he saw incredible amount of joy that he had no paradigm for really being able to understand the level of joy. And he goes on to talk a little bit more about this joy. And he thought that maybe they were joyful because he passed, that they were like welcoming him in. But he was let known that he had not passed. Right? But they were so joyful. Kishani miyachid yichudim lamata ayudei toraseihem hakdusha aval mechosa simcha ein yodei ad hayom hazeh. So what was their simcha? Why was Mashiach et al. So excited to see the Baal Shem Tov? Because the Baal Shem Tov was busy being miyachid yichudim, which we can understand Kabbalistically means like he was involved in the unification, like unifying disparate parts of the world, revealing that fragmentation is an illusion, a very lofty spiritual thing. But essentially, miyachid yichudim is healing brokenness, is the work of healing our trauma. Trauma is frozen energy, and it's also split energy, where we have this sense that we are not aligned. And so the work of being miyachid yichudim is essentially coming back into deep alignment, right? Coming back into a deep sense of wholeness. So that's another way of understanding miyachid yichudim. When we are involved in healing work, when we're involved in looking at our own splits, at the places where we feel like a misalignment, and we actually do the work of coming into alignment, of knowing ourselves, of accepting ourselves, of having compassion on ourselves, of forgiving ourselves, that is a kind of miyachid yichudim. And this is something that the Baal Shem Tov was doing, and this is what Mashiach and everybody was so excited about to welcome him. So here we go. V'sha'alti et pi Mashiach. So this is like the big crescendo moment, which again, like as Lubavitchers, like this is the one line that we focus on, even though there's so much around it. But he comes to Mashiach and he has this big crescendo moment, and he says, Emasai ati mar, right? When Mashiach, I'm here like representing the Jewish people. When are you coming? V'heishiv li, b'zois teda, b'eis shifarsem למודך ויסגר לו בעולם ויפוצו מהנסך החוצה מה שלמדתי עשך והשגת. So what did Mashiach answer him? You should know, when your teachings will be publicized and they will be revealed throughout the world and your well springs will spread so far, the Torah that I taught you, v'hisagta, and the Torah that you learned on your own. And this shows us that each one of us has the capacity to learn and to teach and discover our own Torah. So we can live in this world feeling very much that like, I'm here to learn from other people, and maybe I don't trust my own voice, maybe I don't trust my own insights, maybe I need permission, or I feel somebody else always knows better. But there's a Torah, there's a wisdom, there's an inner sense of knowing that each one of us has that is unique to ourselves. And so it's not just the Torah that the Baal Shem Tov learned from Mashiach, but Mashiach says, V'yisagta, the Torah also that you discovered and uncovered in yourself. And I think this is a really powerful portal to understand the power of really trusting ourselves. And so much of healing comes to this point of knowing that I can trust myself. I have an inner knowing, I have an intuition, I have a voice, I have a compass. And aligning myself with that compass, which is a form of a yichud, right? Like the alignment of myself with my inner self, with my higher knowing, right? That is also a learning of Torah. That is also a learning of Torah. So not just will Mashiach come when Chassidus spreads all over the world, but when we can do Yechudim, can also create alignment, unification, healing from broken shards. So when each one of us are engaged in the work of understanding ourselves better, healing our relationships, dismantling narratives that we might have, working on how we show up in this world, all of this stuff that sounds so like kind of new agey and kitschy, and what does it actually mean? But when we really strip it down and we say like the commitment to the bettering of ourselves, to the unfolding of self, is part of the Geula, is part of what Mashiach is telling the Baal Shem Tov that needs to happen before like the big moment, is la'asas yichudim va'aliyas kamocha, that we should be doing these kinds of yichudim, of healing the fragmented parts. So what is the Baal Shem Tov's like reaction to this? I think it's exceptionally human. V'temeti al zeh, I was shocked to hear this. V'haya li tsar gadol barichas hazman kol kach masai zeh efshar liyes. And he had this sense of pain of like, wow, this is not like, we're not going to snap our fingers and there's going to be this like revolution, redemption. This is a process. And the Baal Shem Tov understanding that this process would take time, because all healing ultimately takes time. The process is more important than the product and the outcome. And the Baal Shem Tov had a very human reaction to that. You know, like, Tsar Gadol. It was painful to imagine the amount of time that this would take. So what is he able to offer us, though, in this moment? He cannot. He has his message from Mashiach, and he has a hopeful message, but at the same time he's aware that it's a process. There's no easy fix. Like in any healing process, there's no easy fix. But what is he able to offer us? So he talks about how he got these segulos from Mashiach, but Mashiach didn't want him to reveal it, so he had to keep them to himself. But he's able to offer us something, and this is kind of like what I'm moving toward, that I really want to flesh out, and then from there we'll go into piece of the Rebbe. What can the Baal Shem Tov offer us? What did he learn from Mashiach that can impact us? It's quite interesting. He offers us this beautiful teaching on the Hebrew letters. Okay, I don't know if Adi is still on, but I just had the merit of studying Kabbalah Yoga with Adi and Karen Goslin for 4 days, and understanding that the Hebrew letters through which God created the world and continues to create the world constantly are not just haphazard shapes, but are seriously like these tremendous antennas, formations, celestial things that are portals for divine light and creativity and so even moving our bodies, talking about talking about the power of the soma, of being embodied, actually moving our bodies into the shape of the Hebrew letters with intentionality, with kavanah, allows us to use our bodies as a way to channel this sublime light and to partner with God essentially in the creative process. So here is one offering that the Baal Shem Tov offers us on the Hebrew letters. He says, and I'm going to skip a little bit. He tells us basically to please take it seriously, take your service seriously. Have your service to God, your devotion to the divine be intentional. Be'ez tfilasecha v'limudcha v'chol dibur v'dibur ma'asevatecha tekaven liyachet shem. Whatever you do in the time of your prayer and in your learning and your speech, anything that comes out of your mouth, have the kavanah, the intention of unifying God's name. And again, this idea of unity, of unifying, of bringing disparate parts together, of becoming whole. What happens in speech that allows us to come to this place of wholeness? Ki b'chol ois v'ois yesh olamos u'neshamos or ve'elahos. Every letter has 3 aspects to it. We're gonna get a little heady for a second, but just stick with me, okay? And the idea of 3 is there's lots of stuff in Judaism about 3. There's lots of things divided up into thirds. I'm sure you can think of examples. We're going to focus on one particular one, which the Baal Shem Tov offers us here, which is Olamos, Neshamos, ve'elahos. Sometimes this is referred to as Olam, Shana, and Nefesh as well. But it's 3 aspects of the letter. And again, the letter as building blocks of creation. 3 aspects of the letter, which also can be extrapolated to encapsulate 3 aspects of all created things. So nefesh is the soul of the letter, or the soul of the thing. Or here in the Baal Shem Tov's language, it would be the elahus, so the soul of it. So each letter has a soul. Each object, each thing, each one of us has a soul, right? The other aspect is the nishima, which is the breath, right? So to make a letter, we need to use our breath, right? So there's the nishima, which is also related to the shana aspect of things, so the temporal aspect of things. And then we have the olam, which is the three-dimensional, like the form of it. So we have the form, the shape of the letter, the matter. We have the breath that it takes to articulate. And as we articulate the letter and create a specific form, that letter then has a soul, a nefesh, or a host to it. And so the Baal Shem Tov is saying, I can't tell you the secrets that Mashiach told me, which would like automatically transform this world, but I can tell you that something powerful happens in speech. Something powerful that's able to really create these yichudim that can like heal the world. And that has to do with intentionality in how we speak the letters. And really tuning into the three aspects of the letter. Three aspects of the world. Nefesh, Shana Olam, Elahos Neshama Olam. And when we have this intentionality in speaking the Hebrew letters, and I'm like, using our breath and imagining the form, and like the form is filling up with the energy that we are creating, so we become then partners, intimate partners with these building blocks of creation, right? And he describes this whole beautiful process of the letters kind of going up and connecting one with the other, and having a huge impact on the world. Okay. So we have these three aspects, and I want to now kind of pick them apart a little bit and bring it to this space that we talked to of embodied mysticism. Of, okay, this sounds cool. It's like some nifty way related to Hebrew letters. Okay, how does that actually affect me? So a few months ago, I started training with somebody named Thomas Hubel. He's a mystic, he's a healer, he's a teacher, and his I think expertise is collective trauma healing. He himself is not Jewish. He's from Austria. His wife is from Tel Aviv. She's an artist, and he has a really interesting story. You could find it online. But he's done a lot of work in survivors or children of survivors of Holocaust, with children or grandchildren of people who fought in the war, in the bad guys, and helping them have encounters to really heal their trauma. I'm in a 2-year program with really, really deep healing and process work, looking at psychological, mystical, and somatic principles that come together to heal personal, collective, and ancestral trauma. And it's very, very intense work. There's a lot of witnessing. There's a lot of being with people who are, like all of us, going through really intense brokenness and trying to come to this place of deep healing. And Thomas is also offering us a model for facilitating growth in ourselves and in others. And I was in North Carolina a few months ago for a 7-day retreat. And we spent the first day and a half talking about what he calls the divine law. And how he defines trauma is that each one of us knows intuitively, it's like the Hisakta, it's like the internal Torah. Each one of us knows intuitively that we each have a right to 3 things: to be, to become, and to belong. Being is a state of being, right? That as a person in this world, as a divine creation, I can be without anything to prove, without any reason or to earn someone's love. I can just be, and my beingness is enough. And for anybody who's like plugged into hustle culture, which was me for like a decade, you know that I can speak for myself. Like I, I didn't get near being. The being was dangerous. You can't be. You gotta be moving and doing and efforting and proving and performing and convincing and but yet being is so powerful and being is so healing and being is a state, right? It's a state of being. So denying someone's capacity to be, hurting someone's capacity to be, is breaking the divine law. And that causes trauma that needs to be healed. Then there is belonging. Each one of us, again, the Vihisagta, the Torah that lives inside, wants to belong. And you can imagine, like, I'll just draw this out. You have, like, the being is a straight line. So this is like the being is a straight line. And then you have the belonging. You have belonging. Each one of us wants to belong to something, to belong to ourselves, to belong to community, to belong in a relationship, to feel a deep sense of belonging is primal, is human, is godly. And there are those of us, how we were shaped, our relationship with our parents, early childhood wounds, etc., where belonging was really challenging. I don't feel like I belong. I struggle with belonging. I'm desperate to belong. I feel rejected. It's hard for me to feel accepted. I never really feel like I belong anywhere. This was a story for me for years and years. Belonging is primal, and there's so much pain around belonging. And I'm just like invite you to even think if that's a particular thread that relates to you, of, you know, when I say belonging, what does it bring up for me inside? Okay, can I touch that part of me that really wants to belong? And if there's pain there, what is that pain? How does it show up in my body? Is it connected to a particular memory? And belonging includes the word longing, right? We have a longing to belong. And a lot of the healing, I think, that we do around finally finding our belonging is to actually own the longing and the belonging. Because sometimes I can carry shame around my longing to belong. I don't need anybody, I'm fine. I don't know. Actually, it's okay to feel the longing to belong. It's actually how we were created. It's so human. And so the denial of the belonging, the belonging being hurt, you could think of an attachment theory like the anxious attachment. Trauma can happen around belonging. So that's another portal for where the divine law can be broken, and that creates trauma in this world. And then finally there's becoming. So we have being, we have belonging, and then we have becoming. So you have the shefa, the divine flow. Ooh, this is kind of like hard to do. That comes from above to below, inside. So when I'm being, and something happens in meditation, when I'm with my being, I can open up to divine flow. And then there's what happens in the relational space, what happens in relationship. And relationship is that tension, that ebb and flow, that back and forth between becoming and belonging. I'm a part of you, but becoming is the actualization of self. It's the creative force. It's the part of me that wants to be who I am in this world as an expressed person, uniquely myself, with my ideas and my passions and my missions. Like a fully expressed person is my journey of becoming. And again, we have this opportunity of relationship and tension between the being and the belonging, and the becoming and the belonging that happens in relationship. And so there are times where I feel more inclined to belong. And again, for any like attachment theory people, it's like the anxious avoidant. Like I want to belong, and yet I want to cultivate myself, my own becoming. And again, if we get in the way of somebody's process of becoming, that's also a source of trauma. And again, not every trauma is huge, but even little traumas can have deep, deep impacts and necessitate deep healing. So at this retreat that I was at in North Carolina, we spent 2 days looking at our own being, becoming, belonging in our own lives, in our own stories, and fascinating and also very painful to look at those particular things for myself and really, like I said, tune into the longing around belonging and also just seeing how much I crave being. So if we go back to this paradigm that the Baal Shem Tov offers us about the Hebrew letters, and we kind of borrow this frame of this like modern day mystic healer Thomas Hewell of the being, becoming, and belonging, we start seeing some interesting connections. Nefesh, Elohus, that part of every letter, the part of every part of creation that has a soul, relates to being, right? Being is being aligned with, in tune with, creating space for my soul, right? So in the stillness of my heart, I am, right? Like, where does that live? That sense that I am the present moment, right? Touching our soul, that is an act of being, of a radical being with the ultimate thing that is, which is God. So that's the being. That's the nefesh. That's the Elohus. Then you have the neshima, which is the breath, which relates to the shana, which is the temporal aspect of creation. So the fact that things exist in time. And that is the becoming, right? The evolution of my self-actualization, the process of me unfolding, happens in time, right? So many of us are impatient. We want to be who we are right now. We want to figure our shit out. We want to like be fully healed. We want to just, and even the Baal Shem Tov has this moment of recognizing the process, right? Like that he's pained because he understands that redemption doesn't happen overnight. There's a process. So too our process of becoming. I have this thing that I wrote that I'm in love with the process of becoming. Like, what does it mean to fall in love with the process of our own unfolding? Something beautiful to think of ourselves over time, expanding, getting to know ourselves, getting more aligned with ourselves. That is the shana aspect, or the nishima breath, because again, breath is something that evolves over time. Time evolves, right? So the sense of like evolution, unfolding, becoming, neshima, shana. Okay? So we have the nefesh, the being, we have the becoming, the neshima, and then finally we have the olam, which is like the shape, the structure of the letter, the structure of the world, the fact that we live in a physical world. And that is belonging, right? That God put a soul into our body, and living a life of inner peace and healing and wholeness is when we can feel a sense of harmony between our souls and our body, right? a sense of harmony between matter and spirit, when we can really belong to ourselves. I think that's a turning point for many of us, is when we realize, like, we're looking, like, where's my community? Where's my home? Why can I find a place where I could just be who I am? And this Jewish community has this problem, and this place has that problem. And, like, can I just find a place where I can belong? And it's a real wanting. But there's the ultimate belonging is the belonging to self. Is like, I can feel at home inside of me, and that's the nefesh really feeling aligned with the guf. So here we have like an example of like the Baal Shem Tov talking about the three aspects of the Hebrew letters as portals of divine light and creation that allow us to really create like unity in this world. Here we have a way of kind of like unpacking that for like a model of being in this world of evolution of self that is sensitive to our being, belonging, and becoming, and a model for healing. So we're going to grab onto that now, okay? And if I was actually able to like talk to people, I would stop for questions or like, does this resonate? Does it not resonate? Is this making sense? But I'm talking to myself, so I'm going to trust that something is landing. But we're going to follow this thread, okay, of the being, belonging, becoming, of looking at a paradigm that could seem very like spiritual Hebrew letters, and really thinking about, how does this land in my body? Like, can I feel what being and belonging and becoming mean for me, right? So we're embodying the learning in a way that's personal, and now we're gonna pull this into Sicha of the Rebbe on the Eimer, okay? We're going to pull this into an understanding the Rebbe offers us, Lubavitcher Rebbe, on Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so we are in the Omer. We're in the final stretch. We have 1 week left, just about, even less, Seizush Chodesh. But we are still in the time of the Omer, which is the time of the counting, of moving from Pesach to Shavuos, from our exodus to the time of being ready to be Kabbalah Torah. This is taken from this amazing Safar, which is basically a synopsis of Sichos of the Rebbe, written in more modern day Hebrew, but like still very impactful and like a lot to chew on. I happen to love learning from this. And I want to just dig into a particular part of the Sicha. It's page 232 on Tzveres HaOmer, Koicho Shel Hasmada, the power of practice, of diligent, repeated practice. There's a beautiful Mishnah of Rabbi Akiva standing at the well and wondering out loud, how is it that the stones are softened? And he realizes that the stones are softened by the drip, drip, drip of the water falling on the rocks. And so this is like what it means to be a mystic, an embodied mystic, that the Rabbi Akiva is walking through the world and observes nature, observes a stone and the activity of water, and is able to experience such a paradigm shift, because he says, if something soft like water can soften something hard like stone, if my stuckness, the part of me that's a rock, that's disconnected, that's numb, that's disillusioned, that's detached, can become softened, can heal, then my heart can be impacted by the words of Torah, and then he goes to the yeshiva, and it's a whole turning point. So what do I want to focus on in this Sikha that relates to what we're talking about? And again, we're using mysticism, Torah, as a paradigm, not just for understanding deep spiritual thoughts, but for how can I create and tune into an opportunity for deep healing and integration, right? How can I embody the learning in a way in which my sense of self is impacted, or it could be a model for living a richer life? So here's what the Rebbe says, which I think is so fascinating. He sets up, he has many questions about the rock and about the water and about Sphira for another time. But what's the point here? He talks about Rabbi Akiva being a Ben Ger. Rabbi Akiva was the son of converts. And because he was a son of converts, Keva Shekach, לא הייתה לו שירוס רוחניוס טיביס שיש לכל יהודי מעצם הילדות כבן לעם ישראל. Because he was a child of converts, he did not have the sense of like generations behind him of people who were like learned in Torah and like he didn't have like the ancestral spiritual lineage of those who are steeped in Torah. And so what does that mean for Rabbi Akiva? So on one level we could say, okay, Rabbi Akiva wasn't learned because he didn't have anyone to teach him. You know, other people have like, you know, their fathers or grandfathers or a rabbi, so there's a sense of like knowledge being passed down. Rabbi Akiva didn't have that luxury. Simple, straightforward. Okay, but there's something deeper. Rabbi Akiva had the consciousness of feeling othered. He did not feel like he belonged. Right? His olam was not in alignment. He had a sense of scarcity. This doesn't belong to me. I don't fit in here. I'm a Ben Ger. I don't have the knowledge that other people have. I can't hack it. Right? Is it familiar? These narratives familiar? Like I'm not enough. I feel like if each one of us actually was truly vulnerable of how we carry the I'm not enough story around. Like what a portal for honesty and compassion. How many of us walk around with that sense of not enoughness, right? So Rabbi Akiva was walking around with a sense of not enoughness. Ben Ger, I'm not enough. And that scarcity mentality, the feeling that I don't belong, that I'm othered, I don't have a home, not just impacted him in the sense that he didn't feel like he could go to yeshiva or change his life, but even his physical the Rebbe says here that he was poor. He was actually like physically poor. So the scarcity mindset, feeling poor spiritually, also impacted his physical life. And the Rebbe offers like a beautiful way of understanding like what is it that actually allowed Rabbi Akiva to let go of that consciousness, to actually like be metakein. If we're looking at this again, this of the divine, the being, the belonging, and the becoming. What is it that allowed him? And by the way, this looks like lungs, right? It's like the breath coming into the lungs. So even like, again, it's a neshima, like the breath allows us to really hold this process. I love that. So what allowed Rabbi Akiva to shift from that othered, not belonging, scarcity mindset? And the Rebbe says that it's the activity of the yegia, of the working hard, of the hasmada, of the drip, 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 of the process, of having patience and compassion for the process, and understanding that diligence, step by step, hard work is what allows us to experience paradigm shift. And it's a really beautiful model, and it's related to Sfirsa Omer, which is counting every single day, etc., etc. And that only Rabbi Akiva, who came from a place of feeling othered, of not belonging, only through Rabbi Akiva could the whole oral law, the Torah Shebaal Peh, be like, it was foundational to Rabbi Akiva, only through him, because he had a sensitivity to this dynamic, to making a choice, to having to cultivate identity, to move from scarcity to abundance, to be mivarer, the avoda of birur, of discernment, of refinement, which is what the Torah is ultimately about. So it's a beautiful teaching. And I just want to kind of highlight the belonging piece. Because I think you could learn this sikha, and you could learn it, it's beautiful, and you could say, oh, there's a story of this big rabbi who didn't learn Torah until he was 40 years old, and he goes to a rock, and he sees the rain. And you could come out of this with a really beautiful learning about Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral law, or you could read this as a blueprint, a synopsis of my own life. What does it actually mean for me to align myself with the consciousness of somebody who feels like a ben ger, like an other, they don't belong? And without trying to fix it, can I sit with that part of me that really feels like I don't belong? And can I sit with that part of me that feels the longing and the belonging? The part of me that wishes, that yearns for belonging, to be seen, to be heard, to be witnessed, to be accepted, to be loved, to be cherished. The humanity of that longing, of that yearning, that is so central to each one of us, right? And how it's something that we look for and yearn for as a young child throughout our whole lives. It doesn't go away. There's never a moment where it's like belonging, check, being, check, becoming, check. No, the process, the unfolding, the drip, drip, drip of the water on the rock. And can I sit like Rabbi Akiva sat with the identity of being a ben ger? Can I sit with that part of me that no matter how things might look on the outside and how great my life is and all the friends that I have and all the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, can I sit with that part of me that doesn't feel like I belong? That does feel different or othered or an outcast? Can I align myself with the identity of the ben ger? And what does it feel like to align myself with that identity? Like what comes up for me as I sit with that part of me that feels like I don't belong? And can I really sit with that discomfort? And where does that discomfort live? Can I feel it in my body? Does it have a particular sensation? Is there a particular memory or a moment where I felt like a ben ger, like othered and not belonging? Am I still carrying that story with me, that pain still? And can I accept that pain without trying to fix it? And where are other places in my life where I feel this sense of of scarcity, right? Where are there other stories that perhaps I'm carrying of not being enough? So not only that I'm not belonging, but I'm not enough, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not beautiful enough, or my relationship isn't perfect enough, or my house isn't, my kids aren't. I mean, I think for parents, like the projections that we place on our kids and our fantasy of them somehow saving us, I mean, that's a huge space of ben ger, of of not belonging, of pain, of feeling like if my child is in any way different or not, then I feel othered, right? So where else do I feel this sense of scarcity? And where else perhaps do I feel like tinges of the belonging, of the becoming, of the being? You know, and can I invite more of that in my life? You know, for Rabbi Akiva to move from a place of being a Ben Ger to being a Rav with 24,000 Talmidim, right, did not happen overnight. It was a process, and it was, again, opening up to that drip, drip, drip. So where are those places in my life where I can open up just a little bit to the possibility of being different, doing different, feeling different? And where can I feel that opening in my body? So like as I'm sitting with you all now, and if we had time, we'd go into like a real meditation, but I think there's like a meditative quality to like this part of the conversation. You know, I feel like more of like an opening in my forehead area, like really owning my longing for belonging and creating space for the pain that comes from feeling othered or feeling discouraged or disparate. Just even creating space for that feels like an opening inside. And so maybe you too, as you're sort of following this thread, maybe you as well are noticing some shifts in your like internal landscape, you know, as you're starting to feel into this persona, this identity, this story of the Ben Ger, who ultimately becomes so much a part. Maybe you could track that in your system as well, that movement. Knowing that that movement really does start with deep acceptance and compassion and curiosity of self, and being part of a relationship, of a community, and mirroring to one another, you know, being a friend to somebody, being a confidant, being a listener, being a witnesser. So much happens in that space. So much happens around the being and the becoming and the belonging. And just like Rabbi Akiva, when he came to the well, he did not have the insight alone, but there was others there to witness him. Just like the Baal Shem Tov came and had an encounter with Mashiach, just like the letters are not stand alone, but ultimately combine and unite and interact, and that we, through our aligned parts of our breath and our consciousness and our kavanah, right, we create like these intertwined, interconnected systems. So again, to bring consciousness to how am I part of something bigger than me? And in doing that, right, we truly heal the world. We heal the world. That's, you know, emasai kasimar, like this is when it's happening. This is how it's happening. If we could learn Torah in a way that allows us to really heal ourselves and witness one another and really integrate the learning, so that it's not just hitting us here or even just here, but holistically, I really feel that is like the expression of the most incredible redemption. And I would love to learn with you all some more. I do teach online, and I'm also, you can find me on Instagram. I do one-on-one learning. I love to bounce around ideas. I love to learn with this lens of the text becoming portals to really like deep understanding of self, and I want to leave us with a blessing, that coming into Matan Torah, where we can see the Torah as like an intimate friend, a body of knowledge, of understanding, of insight that is so relevant to every part of ourselves, and one that we can truly embody and live in this world. I thank you so much for joining. Thank you for learning with me, and blessings for an amazing Chag, and to being, belonging, and becoming.